spot, when you've got players that are playing AA that are going to earn a spot, or
Well, you
players.
should guarantee the whole team out of the graduating them and the graduating AAs.
Yeah, but they
You know,
won't
just
go to AA, Tom.
I didn't say that. I said guarantee the AA is a AAA spot too, and the advanced. You know which ones are the best ones. I mean, they just played 6 years for girls hockey Calgary. Not a lot's going to change in a few months.
Well, that's a pretty good point. I'm just not sure if it makes sense or not, because
Well,
I
they
believe
keep losing them, so what they do doesn't make sense. I don't know. What do you think, Hal? What do you guys do? You guys, it's open all the time, eh?
I mean, it's interesting what's happening here is that they're creating new levels. So they just created a U13 level for boys on the district level, tier one or tier two. So that's, between, I mean, that's, God, what is that? That's second year Pee-wees, I guess. But, we've got these 2 or 3 of these academies around town now. One's called Breakaway. I've got 3 players that they now go to school there. They're in a warehouse. And I went over there the other day, and I went in the front, and in the front little lobby area, there's a bunch of bookshelves with books. They call that the library. You go into the desk, and I look around, and all these big metal racks, and they got beer bags on them. And on the wall, there's the stick racks. This is a school just for hockey players, boys and girls, and it goes through 8th grade. But eventually, I'm sure it's going to go further. Although most of
the education, does it qualify? Does it have a standard of approval to meet academic standards?
Yeah, they've got qualified teachers there. The thing that's interesting about it is it's small, and the kids that I have that are going there, 2 of them went mid-year because they were struggling at the public school because the classes are so big. There are 35 kids in a class in the public schools, and and we're a small public school, and it's an alternative learning environment that both these kids needed to be in. The other thing is that they play hockey for an hour and a half in the middle of the day. And, at the public school, they sit in classes for 6 to 7 hours a day. And some of these kids that's not a great environment for them. So I don't think it solves your problem. I like Tom's solution. You know who the best players are. Tell them you don't have to go there. We got a spot here for you. So yeah, they don't get a lot better over 4 months.
No, and you can have a few spots. Have a few spots that are open to people that come in or whatever. But guarantee for 3/4 of your team a spot.
Well, they've guaranteed 5 spots, Tom,
and there's 20 spots on the team.
But they've looked at that over the years, and 5 is sort of the maximum that they can relative to the numbers that they've got returning, and the U18 players they've got that have a chance to make the team in their last year of under 18.
Well, you tell them too. You just they keep on shooting themselves in the foot, and they keep on losing the players, and they've been doing it for years. And maybe it's time for a plan B.
So plan B means you're telling them, but you can't guarantee them.
No, you guarantee them. If I have a player that played AA, and I know that they're ready for AAA, I tell them you're going to play AAA. I mean, you just coach the person for a year or two, and the same with
How can you when you've got 25 players now committed? Like, you've got 2 U18 teams. Most of those kids are going to have a better opportunity now because we've lost those U15 players.
There's 40 spots.
Yes, but how many are returning? There's 10 returning. So
I didn't say not to guarantee them. I said guarantee the top 35 a spot. whether they're out of Bantam or whether out of AA or whatever. You know by now. Girls Hockey Calgary and the Royals should all know Girls Hockey Calgary even more because they play for Girls Hockey Calgary. And, you know, they shoot themselves in the foot. I coached at the Edge, and they're exactly what the hell's talking about. You know, one of the players was playing for Vancouver last night, you know, and you get there, you get to train and you practice every day and you have skills too, you're going to end up a better hockey player. It's very, very similar to the club system in Europe.
Yeah, exactly the same.
There's a dynamic occurring here, Hal. On the male side, there's an outlaw league, which the best players in the community now are going to that league. And they're starting the similar thing in female hockey. And my feedback from knowledgeable people is that it's going to take off. And it's going to compete with prep schools, and it could be the demise of community programs like the one we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's our, I mean, you know, Minnesota still has community-based hockey all the way through high school. But, you know, we got Shattuck down in Faribault, which, you know, brings kids in from all over the world. We've got Gentry Academy, which, you know, went off in their own direction, although they're in the high school league. But then we've got the United States Hockey League pulling players. We got the National Training and Development Program that takes players away from Minnesota. And, but if you look out east, you know, there's prep school hockey out east, and there's AAA hockey out east. So far, Minnesota has held their own. I ran for president of Minnesota Hockey about 12 or 13 years ago and lost that by a vote. And one of the things I wanted them to do is to create tier 1 teams in the fall and the spring that were USA Hockey age compliant, because we are not age compliant. We don't do birth year. We do a June 31st cutoff date. So we could play in national tournaments and so on and so forth. And they thought I was crazy. And now they're doing it all. Now Minnesota Hockey's doing, I mean, when we got tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, it's sort of fall and after the regular season, but the regular season is becoming, you know, at your community level is not the best. It's not the best hockey, and it's cheaper for sure. But we've got the Minnesota Blades that, you know, it's a recruited AAA deal. The kids that I'm coaching right now, and we have kids in our program that go to a place called Minnesota Made, which is a private organization, and they don't even play. A lot of these kids don't even play community-based hockey. They have enough kids for 2 or 3 teams, and they just practice and scrimmage against each other. When we get them, it's hard to get them to play team hockey. They can stick handle and toe drag like crazy, but they don't know much about team hockey. But that's the trend. Unfortunately,
it also makes it that you can't be a player unless your parents got a lot of money.
Right. Exactly. They're willing to pay the bill.
All of these things cost money.
Well, one of the things that's happening here, you guys, is our province, Alberta, if you're involved in one of those outlaw leagues, which may be the case moving forward, most of the good players there would be the best players in the province.
Oh.
And they can't try out at the U13 level if they're playing boys hockey or if they're playing in this elite private league, I think. So this is where the governing body, like, I don't know what Minnesota does. Do they have a provincial team or a state team, an all-star team that competes against other states?
But Wally, Hockey Alberta, Hockey Canada, they want to run everything. So they've made the BC League illegal, and they can't participate in Canada things and all this. Well, you got to adapt with the times.
Yeah.
Now finally the Max tournament will let places like Edge participate because they got that saying, oh, they're stealing our player. Well, they aren't their players.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to do what they can to to get their kid to be as good as possible, and they don't care. And there's no way that they should be banning the BC League. They should accept it that these guys have to have import players to attract fans. They're not go to the Canucks game in the regular season. There'll be 100 people there.
Yeah.
And the like Hal's connected there with Trail. Well, Trail they have that attraction because they've got the best players they can find. You know, and Hockey Alberta, Hockey Canada have to adapt and get their heads out of their butts and say, okay, this is the way the world is now. We got to adapt. It isn't like it was 10 years ago, and so they sit there saying, well, if you don't do it my way, you don't do it. Well, guess what? They don't do it, you know? So it's absolutely ridiculous. And they're the same way all the time. So I think it's ridiculous.
I mean, I was asked one time if my son was good enough to go play in the National Training and Development Program, would I take him out of school here and let him go there? I said, oh, yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? World-class training, playing in Europe, playing in the USHL while you're still in high school. If he's good enough to play there, why would I say no? I mean, it's like, he wasn't good enough to do that, but, I'm in favor of kids playing. Here's the thing that drives me a little crazy here in Minnesota. So we have really strong programs in the big schools, strong programs, and they recruit kids out of the weak programs. They recruit their top 2 or 3 players. They take them out of our program, the communities next to us, because they're smaller. Well, that really hurts our programs from a competitive point of view. And then, it's a vicious cycle. So now the conversation is, we have AA and single A levels in youth. Well, we can't compete at the AA level. And right now we're struggling to compete at the A level because our top, the top 3 or 4 kids in each age birth year are gone. They went somewhere else to go to school and play hockey. And it is, and hockey's so expensive, even in the youth programs, that kids, they're quitting. It certainly happens on the girls' side for sure. So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and then the poor quit and they go do something else, and now your programs get smaller. On the other hand, I know there's 5 communities trying to build another sheet of ice. In one case, it's the 4th sheet of ice. We're looking to build a 2nd sheet of ice. It's $20 million for another sheet of ice.
Yeah,
that's a lot of dough for kids that are never going to play past high school.
Well, it's a thing that people are playing for a different reason now. They're playing to advance all through, right? And that's how the parents deal with you. They don't deal with you that, oh, the kids are having a lot of fun, they're learning a lot. No, they're saying, is my kid going to get to the next level? Is this coach going to get him there? And like when I played, I never even thought of all that kind of stuff. I just played to have fun, and then the best guys, went to the higher levels. But now people are playing for a very different reason. And that's the market.
Well, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say is that, so you have to realize that this is what the players are in for, and you're also dealing with pretty wealthy parents that run their own businesses and all this kind of stuff, and they all have an opinion about how things should go because they're used to calling the shots. That's my experience, the way it's changed from when I've coached before. The parents were just kind of watching, and now it's kind of like, is this guy going to help my kid advance? And you know,
And then
is not.
there's all these off-season programs and coaches that are promising, you know, we'll get your kid, we can train your kid to get to the next level, which of course, you know, everybody is saying it, and they've been saying that for a long time, and it isn't true, but parents buy into it. I mean, I've been on the phone a couple of times the last couple of days. There's a kid who's been playing, he's 19, and he's bounced around since he got out of high school, and he's been out east playing for the Northeast Generals, and he's done some stuff. And his dad, you know, desperately wants to get him on a higher level junior team. And the kid's goal is to then play college hockey and play in Europe. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at his stats. I'm going, well, this is going to be a pretty tough job for an advisor to. I mean, I can probably help him get in, you know, to a higher level team, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, sometimes a parent has to step back and go, you know, school is pretty important, and you know, you might not reach those goals, but there are other places you can keep playing hockey. I don't know, you know, down here, you know, for peewees and bantams, you know, our program charges like $2,500 for the winter, and there's a slush fund for the team, which is another maybe $200 or $300 for expenses and per player. But year round, with all the off ice and all the teams and all, you know, the kids can get on and the training programs, it's a $15,000 to $20,000 a year commitment for years.
Yeah.
Right. Parents want something in return for that. It's return on their investment. I say, well,
if I can interrupt here, I think we're losing sight of why we're doing what we're doing. If we're in it just to get the kids to the next level, then we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. We should be working with the best players only. But we're not. We're working with all players that can afford to play at the level they're playing at. And where they go, it's going to be determined not by us or where they go. It's going to be determined by them and what they do wherever they go. And I think that it comes with coaching, number one, whether you're coaching in girls hockey Calgary or at a prep school. We have to do a better job than prep schools. And we can, but we have to sort of pool our resources and share our expertises to do more better things than's being done outside of our jurisdiction. And that's where I'm at right now, is that it's hit and miss. The coaches are less experienced than some of the coaches who are coaching at prep schools and privately on these other teams. They've got a lot of experience, ex-hockey players who have coached a number of years that are providing good programs. They're not ethically as necessarily as strong as I would think, because they're just overplaying their best players, but nonetheless, they're winning. And that's sort of attracts people or maintains people. And now we have 2 AAA teams. Well, the likelihood of winning with 2 AAA teams should be less, but to me, it doesn't matter.
But it does to the parents.
Well, it does, but we've got more kids that are going to make the team that wouldn't have made it if we didn't lose the players. So it's an opportunity for them to get to play a higher level and get all the benefits of playing the best level you can play. The problem for the coaches, your expectations of winning, and for the parents, it has to be tempered relative to the reality of the environment you're in.
Well, I think that you have a set of players at the upper end that are going to move regardless of, you know, what you do. But everyone that leaves creates an opportunity for another player. And the majority of those players that move, they do not, you know, the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. And they might be, you know, I had one that left. He led the state in assists his 10th grade year. He moved to a bigger school for 2 more years. With me, he would have been a power play, penalty kill. He would have been a star. Okay, he goes to another school. They tell him second line center. He ends up playing third line left wing, and had very limited success for those last 2 years. Struggled in junior hockey. You know, he never got what he wanted out of it. He should have stayed, and he would have had a much better education too. But you know, you can't. You know, I talk to high school coaches that whine and complain about the kids that they lost. I go, well, what about the kids you have? What have you done for them? You know, are you creating better human beings? Are you know, are they learning? Are they becoming great teammates? Are they doing all this other stuff? But you know, everybody, and this is more parent driven than it is player driven. And I was watching one of our group play a week ago in a tournament, and the dad of one of the players that I'm coaching, and I stood next to him, and the dad was talking, look at this kid, look how great he is, look at this kid. I mean, none of these kids are good. And the team wasn't good. And the dad, you know, the kid's only been playing hockey for like 4 years, and the dad didn't play hockey, but he's an expert. He's already an expert on it. And you know, I don't say anything to the dad, but you know, it's I think coaching's so hard now because you have to have that balance between the parent and the child. And just because they've been watching their kid play hockey for 8 or 9 years, they think they got it all figured out. And then they get unhappy, and they take off and go somewhere else, and they're unhappy there. So it's too bad.
Hal, I'd like to mention something that what you say about them thinking that it's really good hockey and the kid is really good is absolutely right. I just came back from a provincial 6-team challenge of provincial teams, the best kids in the age group in the province, girls coming over from boys hockey,
Oh.
and the hockey was brutal.
Oh.
They weren't completing passes. It's 1-on-5 hockey, 1-on-1 hockey, one and done hockey.
Oh.
And so I'm saying, regardless of where they go, if they're going to play hockey that way, it's not helping them. And if we can, with what we've got, teach them to play better as a team and improve their skills, they will get better and compete and get to another level.
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying, Tom, you're a really good example. The players that you've developed that were made this challenge scored very high in my trait ratings. They have hockey sense. They can support, anticipate, get open, be a part of passing and possession. And what I saw all week was this was a rarity. I never saw 2 or 3 passes in a row. Maybe once a game it happened, or twice. But in real hockey, possession of the puck and moving the puck, I think you're capable of it at a much younger age than waiting to watch the NHL complete 150 passes a period. I think we can reach 100.
Well, it's about 100. It's about 100 a period.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I count them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But right now, Tom, you're at 100 and over 100 at U15. I stopped counting because nobody was getting up to 50 at U15. And it was no
we were
longer
always between 80 and our top was 141.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is regardless of where players are going to go, what are they going to learn? How are they going to develop? And something, Hal, that you may not realize here, but I'm going to, the mathematics, U13, 2 years. That's how long you're in it.
Yep.
U15, 2 years.
Yep.
But U18 is a 3-year program.
Right.
So the dilemma is if the 15-year-old becoming 16 doesn't make it, they jump off to a U18 program elsewhere, thinking it's going to benefit their development.
Yep.
And some of them are going to be good players on those teams and will get more opportunity. But on the boys' side, very few 15-year-olds can play AAA. And Tom, I think you mentioned your boy did, and you wished he had played AA a year. Can you talk to that?
Well, he was one of the only 2 kids that went from the U15 to U18. Now you're playing with guys 2 years older than you, so they're bigger and stronger. And he was a star in the bantam, but your role changes. But he had the bad fortune. He almost got his bicep cut right off by the skate cut. So he missed 6 weeks with that and came back. He'd lost his condition and his strength and everything. And, he was never the same player anymore, because I think when you're playing with your proper age group, you're confident. And I've seen other kids that I've coached like that. One kid drafted in the 2nd round by Chicago, and he took grade 11 and 12 in 1 year. Then he went down and played in one of the Boston universities, and he scored 120 goals in Pee Wee. Well, I saw him playing for Canada's under 20 team. He's never carrying the puck. He's skating around, hitting everybody, and he totally lost his game. And I got him a tryout in pro in Europe, and he got 2 assists in 9 games. And the coach said to me, "Tom, he just doesn't make anything happen." And I think if he would have just finished his last year in the Alberta Junior, and still being a star, he would have been because he was a heck of a player. But to play, he just became this defensive specialist at 17 years old, and that's the danger of playing up. Like Mike Schumi coached Cale Makar, so he had him in bantam AA, then bantam AAA, and then Makar went and played minor midget, which is 15 years old. Then he played AAA. Then he went to the Alberta Junior. Then he went to college. Then he went to the NHL. But he didn't skip and play AAA midget, his first year midget, and he's maybe the best defenseman in the world. So, I don't know what the parents were all in a hurry to get their kids into these top things. But if you can go and be a star, like Gretzky, but if you have to be a star at the next level, you can't just be a foot soldier.
Like, I'd like to talk about the girls here, Tom and Hal. Is a girl that's 15 turning 17 more mature and capable of playing U18 than a boy? And
girls mature way quicker than boys do, about 3 years.
So what you're saying then, and it sort of validates your recommendation of guaranteeing a spot to that 15-year-old player.
Well, I think the girls, like by grade 11, girls are basically fully grown, right? Which is they're 17 or 16, I guess, and they're a lot more able to play with kids a lot older than them than a boy is. And that's a big reason why I really don't believe girls should play U15 boys, because as the hitting starts.
Oh, yes.
And, the girls can really get hurt at that level, because the guys their upper body is so much stronger. Even if they're the same weight and do the same program, the guy gets twice as strong because of testosterone, and that's just the facts of it.
Well, Tom, based on what you've said, I agree with your point now of guaranteeing more spots to the graduating U15 player to keep them in the program, because you're, as you said, they're much more mature boys that are 15. And physiologically, there isn't the risk of injury in girls hockey. So that,
and the rules are different too.
yeah. So I'm thinking the fact they're moving, they're probably going to benefit from it wherever they go. But what we've created is a U18 AA program that players at 17 are going to play another year and they can still improve and make AAA. The opportunity is there, but we have to treat that AA program with respect, like you did, Tom, when you coached the team and won provincial championships. And I think that's the big issue now, is the perception that, and as an association, we're not taking elite hockey seriously enough. It's more like community hockey, but I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. We're trying to do things the right way, and that means develop complete players and moving them up at the right time. And it just, from what I've learned from what you've said, Tom, a 15-year-old girl graduating to 16 with more talent can be guaranteed a spot. So that's going to be a discussion for us to have later. And
well, I remember my first year coaching for girls hockey Calgary. We permitted one girl to play, and she was still U15, and she scored more than a goal a game, and led the league in scoring. I think in 30 games she scored like 32 goals, and she was, and I think she ended up playing NCAA, and I think she played on the Canada under 22 team. I don't know, Shea
Labby, yeah, she
Yeah.
played on the under 18 team, I think, a year.
Yeah, 18. Yeah, and also the goalie was the same thing. Alicia, she played for me, and she was also a year younger, and she was the best goalie in Canada West for Lethbridge there.
Yeah, there are some that can, and I agree with you. Hell,
Hell's gone, I think.
We have a new person that's sort of in charge of the association here, a very hockey knowledgeable man, familiar with the boys' side. And he told me this story, Tom. Last year, the AAA Association took a 15-year-old that, in retrospect, he said they made a mistake. He said the 15-year-old, while he was physically good enough, he had a bad attitude. He played entitled. He was more of a behavior problem when he went up. So they didn't manage to deal with his personal development and leadership development by bringing him up that soon. It's just same thing with NHL players, you guys. If you bring up a guy you draft without going through the American League first, you may have more trouble than success.
Yeah, well, I'm reading that. Darn, I wish I could remember his name. He's a hockey guy from Nova Scotia. He coached forever. He's written a book, and he talks about Scotty who's Montreal's GM there? That really good guy.
Sam Pollock?
Yeah, Pollock. And Pollock, like he really believed in the draft, but the other thing he believed was that he never gave up on a player till they're 23. So they used to keep the guys down in the minors until they're ready. Eh? And one of the examples he uses, Guy Lafleur's first 2 years in the league, he didn't accomplish much. And then all of a sudden he became the best player in the league. And the other example is Gretzky on his own left the junior team and went and played pro when he was 17. He said, well, the coach is teaching me stuff I already know. And I'm not going to get any better playing at this level. And I think he went to play for Indianapolis or something.
Yep.
So there's, if someone can be a star, then I believe that, they can move up as long as they're not going to, but can't even say as long as they're not going to get hurt, because Gretzky weighed about 140 pounds.
Yeah,
But
I want to make a point, Tom, related to Gretzky and related to these stars, like McKenna with U18. How many coaches would take those players and turn them into checkers?
Well, that's the scary thing.
Yeah.
Just to play, they do that, eh? And
Yeah.
you end up it's like I hated sending kids up when I was coaching the midget AA there, because they get called up to the AAA and sit in the bench all game.
Yeah.
And they're missing our game where they play every situation. So unless someone's going to be played, it's better to be a star where you are. That's kind of what I think, anyway.
No, I agree. Well, I've earmarked a couple of points here on the conversation. The Makar story is a huge one on the guy's side. I'm trying to think of the female side. Are there any Makars who did stay back longer and still evolved into becoming great players?
Well, I'm sure Kim would know some, because she coaches the girls all the time, right?
We call them late bloomers, but Makar isn't a late bloomer. He just bloomed at the right time, the right way. He could have been ruined.
Well, Shumi said he was good, but he wasn't the best.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he just blossomed. And he went to Crowchild there, and the guy's a pretty good skating coach, I think. And he worked on his edges all the time there.
Yeah.
So he kept on working on his game. And I don't think they cared about what level he was playing, him and his dad.
Yeah.
So.
Like I'm really hoping to still make the girls' game better. I just sent out the evaluation thing, Tom, that you did to the U15 coaches.
Yeah.
That you received of the camp, and you saw where your players scored at the Alberta Challenge. And thank you for submitting your skill, hockey sense, and intangible ratings for your last year's team. I'm asking, and I talked to Sean this morning, and I'll speak to Roberta later about her submitting similar scores for me. The reason is, it's just not a waste of time. It's when you start thinking about those numbers and arguing about them with your staff, you're getting a different perspective. You're becoming more aware of a complete player and what goes into what you have to do to get them to another level. So Jim's scores were pretty much the same as yours, Tom, eh?
Well, the total was the same a lot. Maybe I dropped a half a point on some things and raised a half a point on other things.
Yeah.
But they were pretty similar, because we had them for like probably 100 times between games and practices and tournaments, and so.
Well, Tom, when we did that with the national team, we didn't have them all year. We had a 1-week camp, and the scouts, they had to do the rating, not on just those 3 traits, but we had 8. And one of the things that concerns me, Tom, is hockey sense. I would put in a second column, offensive hockey sense and defensive hockey sense. So that's something with that form. Is that meaningful at U15, or would it be a distraction? And will it help coaches understand you got to play without the puck and you got to play with it.
Well, I think that the intangibles, I mean, if you got someone that just plays offense, you're going to get a bad score on the intangibles. You know, if someone just coasts and, you know, you think of Pavel Brendel. I remember having a discussion with Mike Barnett. He came to meet Danny, and we all went out for a beer. And Brendel was the big star for the Hitmen then. And Danny was playing for the Canucks. And Mike says to me, but, you know, he's scoring all this, but he's only playing junior A. And I said, well, Mike, he is such a better hockey player than Brendel is.
Yeah.
Because he plays the whole game.
Yeah.
Brendel waits at the blue line for a puck.
Yeah.
And, you know, so.
Well, what I'm saying, Tom, is if you have to write down a number for offensive hockey sense and defensive hockey sense, then you have to know, gee, they're not back checking. Oh, they're leaving the zone early. They're not responsible. Now, I know it shows up in intangibles, but there
Oh
are,
yeah, well you could add it. I'm just saying.
yeah. Well, I don't know whether they're even ready to do 3 scores, because all we've ever done is 1, and everybody drafts without any knowledge from the other coaches. So
Yeah, well I asked for stuff this year, and I think I got Roberta's, but I didn't get Sean's, I think.
Well, I talked to Sean this morning, and I just sent it out in the email. You received the same thing Sean did. And I think I thanked you again for submitting your numbers. But and when you at the national level, when you break it down into 8 phases, 8 traits, you're looking at everything in a more analytical way as a coach. So you're looking, how do I teach maintaining D side? How do I teach angling or surfing? How do I teach stick use without the puck? When to check people.
Well, you know what we should be doing, Wally, and George Kingston did this, and it was kind of like an outline for phys ed. What we got is all of the skills should be listed. And George, what he did, he had this. I think I might even have a. I don't know. It was
I have a
1,000 years
copy.
ago.
I have a
Yeah,
copy right beside me
and
now.
every time he worked on that skill, he put a check mark.
Yeah.
So then he could look and say, okay, I haven't worked on this, because everything needs to be worked on no matter what. Like, I see the NHL guys working on these things.
Yeah.
Every coach, like Bob Hartley, every single practice he worked on angling and stick on puck. He was really big on that.
Yeah.
And every coach has kind of the things they always work on.
Yeah.
But you know, that would help the coaches to say, you know, this is the, and I think Emily told me that Tessa's mom sends out a thing about what they need to work on each week or something.
Mhm.
So I imagine she has kind of a ordered thing like this.
Well, it's just a matter of whatever we give coaches, what are they going to use? This evaluation mechanism of 3 traits is to get a better look at what the player needs to do better in terms of evaluating them. But the bottom line is, you're the coach. You have to make them better in the area they're not as good as they could be in. So this is for coaches. It's not for player selection, although it will help because you'll know what you're selecting, and coaches can know what the strengths are of each player and the weaknesses by their scores in 3 areas. And it's not like hearsay or this person said.
Oh no, well, the more information you got, the better, for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm seeing if they'll do that, and I'm just still hoping to, you know, keep staying in hockey a bit here now in the time I've got. So.
Well, it's just like doing the team covenant thing, or the thing you did there. I mean, going through the process is great, and you can always refer back to it.
Yeah.
But everybody, it depends how much value the people give to it.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you can't. Everybody's got their own brain and does their own thing. I mean, you know, you can only do what you can do.
Yeah. Tom, the team covenant, how different is it from the mission statement exercise? Is it the same? Would you do it? Like, I'm thinking maybe you should do the team covenant next year.
Well, I usually do the team covenant. We talked about the stuff all the time, but we never made an official team covenant.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I think it's the first year I haven't done that.
Yeah.
But you know, we talked about the kind of stuff all the time. The benefit of the team covenant is the team makes it. There's no coaches involved.
Yeah.
You give them some guideline and they make it. And it always comes down to you only got so much time to do things, and you know, sometimes you forget some stuff.
Do you have a template for that?
Yeah, I got like the guy that told me about it was Bob Murdoch.
Yeah.
And he said he would never coach a team without a team covenant. And he gave me his one from a pro team in Germany that he coached.
Yeah.
And it's 5 or 7 points. It's not like a whole whatever. And the team comes up with it. And he says, whenever there was a problem, you know, a player doing something or other, they come into the office, and that was what was referred to, is what they agreed with on the first place.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, he's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah. Can you send me a copy of how to do the team covenant with a team?
Sure.
Because I don't believe I'm going to be doing the mission statement exercise with the parents. But if you do it with the team, I'll get everybody to do it with the players, because we never did the mission statement exercise with the players. But the team covenant is a thing that the players can do. And if we do the mission statement exercise with the parents, the team covenant is what it complements the mission statement exercise. So I'm going to sort of be reminding you of that so that I can pass that on. Hell, we're talking about team covenant, and Tom got from Bob Murdoch years ago when he was coaching pro. He said he would never coach a team, and I'm sure at any level, without a team covenant. Tom, and I'm going to get you just to repeat what you said about Bob and the team covenant that you used to do, but we didn't do it last year. I'm trying to look at that tool to get people on the same ethical page. Tom, would you?
Well, the team covenant, basically how you do it is after you've got captains, you know, after the team has been together for a little while, get the captains to run a meeting, and the players come up with 5 or 7 points that's going to be their guide, you know. And then he said, if things happen during the season, you've always got this covenant to refer to and say, okay, we agreed on this, you know, and this is what the players agreed on, this, which gives it a lot more power than the coaches said to do this, right? And I basically forgot to do it last year, but we, you know, as far as the team went, we didn't have problems. It's not something to do with the parents, and it's a really good thing to have. So
let me ask you this. I don't typically have captains. It seems to be the process of either electing them or appointing them is disruptive. And 2 years ago, when I had that Bantam team and I I offer a leadership development program for any player that wants to participate in it. And if they don't want to, that's fine, but they've got there's a book that I use called Captain's Leadership Manual by a guy named Jansen, Jann. It's got 2 S's in it. It's actually a really good book about leadership and the different styles of being a leader, or being a captain. If
you have a picture of that book, and
I'll send it to you.
Send it to me, because I've had some association directors ask about leadership education here. So
I think it's a great book, Wally, and then I sit, and there's assignments, so the kids have to read and they have to write some stuff in there. It's not tough. And I meet with them every 2 to 3 weeks with the group of leaders, and we talk about those. It's more of a workbook for conversation.
What's the title of the book again?
Let me see if I have it sitting here. Just a second, I can look it up. It's available on Amazon. It's Captain's Leadership. Yeah, here it is right here. It's Team Captain's Leadership Manual. Here's what it looks like. I don't know if does that?
Take a picture, send it to me.
Yep, that's the Amazon.
Yeah, I'm gonna order one today. Plus the water bottle you said, Tom.
Yeah. I mean, I asked the kids 2 years ago, I said, what do you think about captains? This has been something I don't know, I've struggled, but every group of kids is different. And when I was at Providence, we had kids from multiple communities, so I tried to spread leadership positions around so each tribe had representation. And but then we expanded it into a leadership group. And but I also like what Tom's saying. But I asked the kids, who's been the leader, who's been normally the captains? Oh, they go, that's easy. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, it's usually the coach's son. I said, well, do you like that? They go, no, I don't like it at all. Then I watched our high school coach last year. The kids voted on it, and the kid that everybody voted for the coach didn't make him a captain. And so, I mean, everybody voted for him. That's what they told him, whatever. But the coach didn't say that. So I think I find that sometimes it's a pretty challenging process. My goal again this year is because captains can't do anything at 14 years old. They make no decisions. They get a C on their shirt, except ours. Apparently, we can't put them on the sweaters. I don't know why.
Well, we need them because the refs won't talk to a person unless they got a letter, right?
Well, our refs won't talk to anybody anyways. They'll talk to me. They won't talk to the kids. They're just not interested. And there's only one scenario, I think, in high school hockey where a captain can make a decision. And that's if you have like 5 guys in the penalty box.
Yeah. And
you get scored on, and if 2 or 3 of them went in at the same time, and they're all eligible to come out, the captain can tell the ref which kid comes out of the penalty box. I've never seen it happen, but that's
I was going to say that could be once a year.
Yeah, or maybe once a decade. I mean, I don't know.
Well, what I do, and it's not perfect, but I have an anonymous thing.
Yep.
And I have every kid come and talk to me or the assistant coach and name 5 teammates that they think would be good captains.
Yep.
And then I ask the coaches as well.
Yep.
And then use that as a real guide, because I don't want to appoint someone to be captain that nobody mentioned, or 2 out of 19 mentioned.
Right.
And then make a decision on based on all that input, who the captain would be. But captains are, if you get a bad captain, it can really, really hurt things.
I watched it
I
with my
want
son.
to,
And I haven't done a very good job of teaching captains how to be captains. And I think that's something I have to add to my toolbox.
yeah. Listen, last year we had issues with one U15 team. I'm not sure how their captains were selected, but I'm going to inquire. And you mentioned how they can't lead at 14. They're not natural leaders, so they do need education.
Yep.
But when we were having a crisis with parents, the director of the age group had a meeting with the coaches and the leadership group,
Mm-hmm.
listening to the concerns that had been sort of uh, just in the atmosphere of the team that were demise of the team, and the captain supported the coaches in that meeting, and basically they said the problem was the parents. So they you do have crises that occur, and you may have to refer to your captains to validate things that are going on, but we have to bridge a communication gap. Use our captains to communicate, develop our captains to become leaders, but improve the communication with parents in the whole process. So, listening to you guys talk about captains, that book, Tom, the mission statement exercise to me is a parent one. The
Mhm.
covenant, I would like to propose, become a team one
I
with
like that.
every team, because it doesn't involve the parents, but the parents understand the covenant that the players are doing and the mission statement that we've done with them, and it should dovetail and complement one another.
So the reason I've sort of gone the direction I've gone, I've watched my son coming up through high school playing sports, lacrosse and hockey, and watched captains chosen the same for both teams, the wealthiest family in the program, whose dad has the checkbook for the slush fund for the team. And they were not good captains. And my son just, ignored them. He says, and they didn't really do anything. I think I've been through a lot of leadership stuff in my corporate jobs. And companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to develop leaders in business. And not very many people are very good at leading. They're good at directing, but not leading. And everybody's got a different style. I mean, you got, you can think, the Bobby Knight style, and you got, all the different coaches in hockey that are, hard ass, or Mike Sullivan's different than the other guy up, on the other team. As coaches, who are the ultimate leaders. But I think whenever you put somebody in a leadership position, you're obligated to help them grow as leaders and teach them about leadership. And in my working career, I think what I do for these young players is more leadership training than they'll probably get in their life.
Well, that's a really good idea, what you do with the whole group, for sure.
And it's voluntary, except they have to show up. So it's an extra meeting or two a month. And they all get a copy of the book. It's $29 or something US. And they're, the team pays for it. And the kids that want to be leaders, Because, the idea is that every player can actually be a leader, right? I mean, they can't all score the winning goal. Most hockey teams, it's 3 or 4 kids score most of the goals. So what are the rest of the kids going to do? Right? So how do they lead? How does a goalie lead? How does a defenseman lead? Who does he lead? He leads his partner. He leads the other defenseman. The top defenseman should be helping the younger defenseman, and and in terms of shot blocking and all that. Everybody can be a leader of maybe just one other player on the team. So that's what I try to get, that type of team cohesion. Granted, Wally, you're right. I mean, it's about communication, and captains have a communication to the coaches. So a couple of years ago with that Bantam team I had that I had a lot of problems with, when we had the problems, I sat down with the captains. I said, my biggest disappointment here right now is that you didn't come to me and tell me what was going on. And you all knew. In fact, a couple of you participated. And I know you were scared that you were going to have consequences, and there were consequences. But this is a real learning moment for you guys. And I'm just disappointed that you didn't trust me enough to come and talk to me. So we had that. Later in the season, goalies were playing every other game. One of the goalies was female, the other was male, and we got in the playoffs. And the captain came to me and he said, the boys want the guy goalie to play, not the girl, because I said it's her turn. He says, yeah, but we always start slow, and we need the guy to hold us into the game until we get going. And I said, look, I made a commitment to the goalies that we're going to play every other game. And they're both good goalies. And it's her turn. I said, so this is on you. You get the boys up and get them going, and don't start slow, start fast and play hard. And between the second and third period, because we had ice, a fresh ice cut, I was in the lobby getting a drink of water, and the captain was out there, and he came over, he said, and we were winning the game at the time, he goes, good call, coach. That was a good call. That was the right call. And we ended up winning that game in overtime. And she was awesome. And so there's a lot of things that happen, and there's a lot of communication through it. I was with our goalie from last year. I had dinner with him last night to talk about this next year in Bantams, and I told him that we're probably not going to have captains, but we're going to have a leadership group. I didn't do it with Pee-wees because I think they're a little too young, to get them to sit still long enough to actually do it. And it wasn't a problem at all. But I think Bantams is the right time to introduce it, or for girls, U15. I've done it with the girls, and the girls really, really like it.
Did you do the volunteer meetings twice a week with the girls?
No, I mean, the book has got, I can't remember how many chapters there are. So I would just say, look, we're going to meet in 2 weeks. I want you to read the first 2 chapters and just answer the questions. And then we sit down and we let each of them talk about what was in those chapters, or what resonated with them, what they wrote in their book. So, it could be every couple of weeks. I want to get it done by January because, if possible.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how many of the Bantam kids want to go through this. And if they skip a meeting or they don't do the homework, I tell them, then you're out. I mean, you're out of the group, because.
How many did you get volunteer, and how many had to leave the group?
Well, normally I like a group of about 5 or 6, but in high school that's what I had. But with the Bantams, we had like 14. So I had to split them into 2 groups. So, but you think about it, think of the time commitment. I mean, on my part now, now I've got an extra, 8 or 10 hours a month I have to spend working on this with these kids, but it's worth it. It's worth, and then of course the parents want the kids in the group, and some of the kids don't want to be in the group, right? And so I think the more you get, especially in youth hockey, where in girls hockey, where boys, you get two birth years, and some of the girls stuff as you get older, you got 3 or 4 birth years. I think it's important to get those kids together and just sit and talk. And the other thing I did when I took over the girls 15 team a few years ago was that was in 2020. I didn't know any of them. So I had the manager arrange a pizza dinner, and we would meet with 3 of them at a time. So we had 3 coaches and 3 players, but we had the mom mix the kids up so they weren't with their best friend. So they were with kids that they didn't know very well. And then everybody, how'd you grow up? Where's your family do? Where do you have a cabin up north? I mean, we tried to do all that sort of get to know each other stuff. Really important for me as a coach, because the more I know about a kid, the easier it is for me to coach them and talk to them and relate to them. Sometimes it's more about, it has nothing to do with hockey. It's just about them as people and their families and understanding them as individuals. Because there's that's especially with girls, and if you're a guy coach, you have to get permission from them to coach them. Boys just, you're the coach. I think with girls, it's you need to earn the right to coach them. You got to earn their trust. And you can do that pretty quickly just by talking to them. And it took me a couple of weeks to get that going when I started with them. And then it was great after that. But they're wary. They don't like to be yelled at. And they don't like to, so you don't yell at them. I mean, nobody likes to get yelled at anyways. I don't. So I work at this pretty hard because I think it's important for the kids. And again, the parents like it. They like the fact that I do this for their kids. And I go the extra mile opposed to all the other coaches they've ever had. So, if I'm going to coach the way everybody else's coaches, then I'm not going to coach, because I just don't do it the same way everybody does it, because I have a different style, a different direction, and I get better outcomes most of the time.
Hell, I got to thank you, because the leadership thing, I talked to one of our, she's actually a U18 coordinator.
Yep.
And has a daughter on the U15 team.
Yep.
And she asked about leadership.
Yep.
And I did provide her with a couple of manuals that they may not be as significant as yours, but this one is how the greatest coaches lead. It's a CD.
Okay.
And coach bigger than the game, just like the greats did.
Yep.
It's all about pro coaches, but this guy works in minor hockey.
Yep.
He's a minor hockey leader.
Yep.
I gave her copies of the leadership manual that he wrote just to look at.
Yep.
But I think it was perfect timing right now, because the idea of leadership, it's doing something more than anybody else is doing. Yep. That's important, that's valued, that is based on ethics and leadership. What's that, Tom?
Yep.
This is by Daniel Coyle, the guy that did the talent code.
Yeah.
He did the culture code, and it's really good.
Yep.
It gives examples of all sorts of situations and, leadership.
I mean, you can see it in business. In very successful businesses have very, very strong cultures and very, intuitive leadership. And you can think of examples where they don't. Like like Tesla and whatever. But they got to. Oh,
Guys, I found Bruce Beaton's book. I'm going to read you the title. Through Leadership, The Leadership Through Sport Winners Manual. 21 Characteristics of Winners in Sport and Life by Bruce Beaton. Now, Bruce is a guy who never played high school football, but he made university football team. He ended up playing for the Eskimos for 12 years, was an all-star for 6 years, and he has 3 doctorate degrees. And he's written outstanding materials that I used to share, and I have a couple of his on my site. If you go to the Wally Kozak 2009 and type in Bruce Beaton, you'll come up with maybe 3-minute edits of some of the things he said. And so his characteristics of a winner, and it's got answering questions. Winners never make excuses. And the rules John Wooden created to create winners in sport and life were don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. You think you can accept the challenge to follow John Wooden 3 simple rules for a week so that you learn to think and act like a winner, like the great John Wooden. And he's got 2 more questions after that.
Oh.
So he has 21 characteristics. This is his leadership manual. I don't even know if you can buy it anymore. But that's something, and it's all sports.
Yeah.
Hockey related. So
the other book is that I showed you. It's multi-sport. It's got women, it's got men's, youth, but it is a workbook also, so that the players have to interact. They have to read the chapter and then answer a few questions. I like the style. What kind of a leader do you think you are? Are you a quiet leader? Are you a vocal leader? Are you, do you lead by example?
yeah.
I've had some kids, older boys that decided that they were going to help the first year kids assimilate into the team because that was what their deal was. And it takes all kinds of leadership. And I think at the coaching level, it takes a variety of different leadership styles. The head coach has a leadership style. The assistant coaches should have a different leadership style. If they're the defensive coach or the goalie coach or whatever, they need to figure out how to lead those players. And I always say though to my coaches, but we have one voice in the locker room, and it's mine. So as long as you're saying the kind of stuff that is in my wheelhouse, I'm okay with it. When you get out on the edge, and then we have to have a conversation. We can disagree in the coach's locker room, but we can't disagree in the player locker room. And I ended up having a coach that was going around me on a lot of stuff, and I had to ask him to leave. So
yeah, I just wanted to give you and Tom a heads up. I have to leave at 10 this morning, but I've got an appointment for my knee brace. At any rate, my question to you is, what has been, in terms of leadership, your biggest challenge that you've faced and felt were able to deal with in a positive way?
Wow.
It depends what year and what group, right?
Yep.
You've had a lot of years.
Well, the worst one I ever had was college women. And I went around and I did that, named 5 people. And everybody named this one girl. And she was a veteran and one of the better players. So she was captain. And we had a new player that was, yeah, she was working outside of the hockey in college too. And she thought she should be captain, I guess. I don't really know. And she went up to this girl and said, I did a survey of the whole team and nobody voted for you. That's what she told her. and I heard this, and I guess in the dressing room, and I had no female coach that was regularly in the dressing room. I had a goalie coach, but she was only there, a couple of days a week and stuff. But she was disrupting the dressing room all year, and I met with her, and I said, why would you say that? I said, I'm the only one that knows who was nominated by the players, and everybody in the team, including you, mentioned her. And she kept it up all year, and my athletic director wouldn't let me get rid of her, and she caused problems all year. And so that was someone that she had to be out of the dressing room, and she wasn't even a good player. And so that you can really have problems like that if you're not able to deal with them the way you need. You need to deal with them. So that was the worst one ever.
Hal, can you think of something? Have you thought of anything come to your mind?
Well, that was a good story, Tom. I like that. I don't know. I've really wrestled with this whole issue of captains. It reminds me of how much time and energy you spend on picking the last 2 or 3 kids for the team, and it's kind of a crapshoot. And it's why I just sort of kind of went away from it, because it was disruptive. It's in many cases, like Tom saying, it's very divisive, and it really leads to hindering our ability to create the kind of an experience environment that we want if we don't have captains that willingly will work with us and the other kids will work with them. And in today's world where everybody is so focused on themselves, it's a tougher deal. I didn't have any problems with this a long time ago, but about 10, 12 years ago, it just got harder and harder and harder. So I said, well, I got to do something different here, because I don't want to start the season where players are unhappy, and guess who else is unhappy? Their parents up in the stands are unhappy, right? And the same kids seem to be the captains every year coming along. I had a kid tell me, let me see, what were we playing? Pee-wees. And I didn't do captains, and he was the best player. And I said, you've got to, and we need you to step up and as a player on the ice. I need more from you. And he says, well, I can't do that unless I have a C. I said, well, then I guess you're not going to do it, kid. But he thought he had to have a C on his jersey so he could play better. Yeah. I don't know. His dad was CEO of Polaris at the time, and
well, this poor girl I that was being harassed, she was the most happy-go-lucky girl. Like the first 2 years I coached.
Yep.
She was absolute bundle of nerves.
Yep.
She wasn't having any fun. And, I met her about it, and me and my assistant coach met her, and she was, it was just awful for her being a captain. And I really we should have really worked with her about how to deal with it. I tried to deal with the problem. And then on my exit meetings, every player said that this player was kind of taking the fun out of being there.
Yep.
And so,
in
it's
high
not
school,
so much a captain thing, but having somebody disrupting your whole team. And if you get like there, I should have had the ability, because in other teams I did get rid of people that were like that. And in minor hockey, like once you pick the players, you're kind of stuck with them the rest of the.
You are.
Like this girls hockey Calgary, I know they make the team, and then last year the parents had to come up with $4,500 off the hop. And then the cash calls as the year went on. So you can't really say, okay, well, now you're not on the team.
Right.
Well, they wouldn't allow it anyway, but it's,
Well,
yeah,
in high school, we would name at the banquet each year, we would name a couple of captains for the next year in the theory that they would lead in the summer programs and so on and so forth. And we had a wonderful young man named as captain for his senior year. His father had played in Major League Baseball. He was a pitcher, and just a wonderful family. And in the fall, before the season started, he called me up and he said, "Hey, Coach, I don't want to be captain." And I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because we got a couple ninth graders that are just giving me a lot of crap all the time and being very disrespectful to me in the locker room here this summer or whatever." And he said, "I just want to play hockey. And if my being a captain is going to cause some issues, I want nothing to do with it." And I said, "Okay, I'm cool with that." And he wasn't a captain, and he had a great season. And this was 15 years ago. He's still playing ball. He's in the minor leagues. He's in AAA or AA ball or something, but just a wonderful kid. But I had a lot of respect for him to say, I'll just step down because it's the right thing to do.
yeah. Well, I had, when I played in midget, it was U17 then. I was the captain off the hop, but I had just a horrible year as far as injury goes. We had to dive over 6 guys and do a forward roll, and there was a mats with no Velcro holding them. So when I took off the mat, it slipped behind me. So I nicked the last guy, and my chin cracked my collarbone.
Oh, geez.
So I missed 4 weeks because of that. Then I get back, and we're doing a breakout play, and we're playing outdoor hockey. And there was a Chinook, which is a warm wind, makes the snow really soft. So it was a double, now they're hockey rink beside, and they were having a snowball fight. So we're doing a breakout play. I'm going down, and boom, I get hit in the left eye. And it was the night of the Clay Liston fight.
Oh,
because it was on the radio and, updates on the radio.
Yeah.
So I go in there and they put a light bulb. I couldn't see the light bulb. And my eye was bleeding so much.
Oh, geez.
And I had to lay without moving for a few weeks, that they couldn't really do anything for it. So I missed 6 weeks of that. But we kept on, it was a provincial championship round going on. And anyways, this other guy who was a really good guy and ended up playing NHL and World Hockey, they'd appointed him captain. And when I got back, the coach says, "Well, Tom, Al's, doing a really good job at captain. I want you to be assistant." And I totally understood.
Yeah, sure.
Because I was almost not feeling like part of the team, eh?
Yeah.
And we went on to win the provincials. And but it was just one of those bad luck years. And I lost permanently some of my night vision on that. But anyways, that's another story.
In the high school, one year we got a new kid coming. We got kids from 3 other schools, small Christian schools, and this kid was pretty good. I went and watched him play soccer. He was an all-state soccer player, and in his last game, he blew out his knee. And I think he was going to be a junior. Is his junior year. So I told his dad, "Well, here's the doc. Go down and PCO and get this knee fixed," which he did. And that kid came to every single practice and every game and sat in the stands and was in the locker room. So he'd come to practice and for the beginning, and where we play, there's a health club attached to the building, and then he would go over there and do his PT exercises for his knee, and then he'd be back before practice was over. He did that for 3.5 months. And about January, I said, "Hey, Evan," he hadn't even skated with us yet.
Yeah.
I said, "How about being a captain?" And he looked at me and go, "That'd be awesome, Coach." And I made him a captain. We added him on as a captain. And he ended up playing our last 4 games of the season. And then he was a great captain his senior year. It was just, but you know, he had all that quality that you want out of a captain. And you know, what a great kid. So I got to run, you guys.
Guys, before I've got to sign off too, before we say goodbye, Hal, I want to do a session on captains, and I'd like to get Kim McCullough on and some of the females to talk about how they face those challenges. But Tom, at that time later, the team that you took over, we had the midget AAA team. We had some serious internal problems, and I believe that I and Keith made a tremendous mistake in the selection of captains. And not only that, we did not do anything to help them and develop their leadership. So we were responsible in some way for what happened that year, and you salvaged the year. But I still think the leadership of that group was better once you became involved. So I want to thank you guys for both coming on, and I have to sign off now. I've recorded it. I'm going to have fun editing some of this, but it's really important stuff.
It is.
Okay, guys.
Have a great weekend. I'm going to Los Angeles tomorrow for the weekend, so I'll catch up with you guys soon. Okay.
Keep those.
See you, Hal. See you, Wally.
Bye-bye.